Alright, we're going to tie the Unsinkabeetle. This is a fly pattern that I developed a few years back. I was actually helping my mom remodel her house, and I was tying flies, and I tied up something like this and stuck it in a bowl of water. Well, we'd walk by and we'd squish all the air out of it and push it to the bottom of the bowl of water every time we'd walk by. And for the entire time that I was there, for 2 weeks, it was still floating. So we named it the Unsinkabeetle. What I have here is a 2x long size 10 hook. This is the Allen S402. It is a heavier wire hook, which is okay for a pattern that's essentially 100% foam, so it'll get it to land right. I'm using UTC 140 in red, and I'm just going to dress my And on this fly, to make a little bit of a hot spot, I actually go a little bit down the bend with this red thread, and that will show through. It will look like it just kind of extends past the body of the fly. Then I'm going to come back about to the 1/3 point back, about right here, to tie in the first bit of foam. I've got 2mm craft foam that's tan. I've cut it roughly the gap of the width of the gap of the hook. And I'm just going to tie it in right here. Just kind of barber pull it back, so you can see that that little red tag end is showing through. Then as I go back up, I'm going to wrap it a little bit tighter. The next piece of foam is a piece of 1mm cross-link foam from Rainey's, or any piece of 1mm foam. This is a brown color. I'm just going to tie that in the same spot. Now with this piece, you don't want to tie it in too tight right here at the end, or else you'll cut through it. So I'll just make some loose wraps, and then as I come back up through here, I'm going to wrap it a little bit tighter. So we've got those two pieces wrapped in. I'm going to take this 1mm piece and wrap that for the body, and you can see it makes a really cool segmentation as you wrap it forward. I'll tie that off. Now this is a really critical part of the fly. If you pull this too tight over the top of this, you're going to lose some of the buoyancy of the fly. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of lightly fold it over and tie it down right where we tied in the pieces of foam. So that's essentially the body and the shell back of the Unsinkabeetle. From here, I'm going to advance my thread to the head and tie it in again right here, and then come back over the foam that I tied in and wrap it down. At this point, we'll add a little bit of dubbing. I really like this brown olive ice dub. You can see it's got a little bit of purple hue to it. I use this in a lot of my different patterns. It's been a really successful color for me. And I'm just going to dub enough to cover up that thread. So I've covered up the thread, and I'm going to pull this piece of foam back now. So I've got pretty much the head formed here, and when you trim this piece off, if you stretch it a little bit when you cut it, it won't leave as much bulk as if you don't. So I'm just going to wrap that down. That'll all be covered up with thread and dubbing at one point. Now we're going to make the eyes for this fly. And this is one of the things that I think really makes it an effective pattern, because it has some buggy eyes to it. And even though it is all foam, it does ride pretty flush in the water. So I'm essentially going to take my thread and I'm going to go across the head like this, make a couple wraps in front, and then I'm going to come back across on top of the head. So what you can see that I've kind of created a little bit of segmentation in the head, and then I'm going to wrap it back on the body. Alright, I've taken a piece of cream Antron just straight off the card. You can see that it's got the kink still in it for when it's on the card. If you just take that Antron and stretch it, kind of pull it tight, it will take all those kinks out. And I'm actually going to double this over because I want these wings to be a little bit thicker. So I'm going to double that over, and so that's the piece of Antron that I'm working with. I'm going to tie split wings in, and so I'm just going to tie in one at a time. That wing will be on this side, and then when I tie in the other wing, I'm just going to take my Antron and pull it over like this and trap it with thread. You see how that worked? That's a really simple way to tie in your wings. So I've got those cut, and I'm going to come about to where this tag end hits and trim those wings. So we've got a wing. These don't add to the flotation of the fly at all. What they will do though is they'll kind of sit in the water and create a silhouette of like a spent wing. Okay, now I've got some 3/32 parachute posts from Rainey's. This is a bright yellow color, and I'm actually going to cut it at an angle like this to reduce the bulk when I tie it in, and I'm just going to tie that right in on top of where I tied those wings in. And when I trim it, I'm also going to kind of pull it at an angle like that. I'll just kind of make it a little bit more aerodynamic. So far the fly looks like this. The last couple steps are just to add legs and a band of dubbing. So I'm just going to take medium round rubber. It's either tan or natural colored. I'm going to take this and tie it in on one side, flip it around, tie it in on the other side. Trim that off, and then I'm just going to cover up the thread with a little bit of the brown olive ice dub again. So I've pretty much covered up all that thread, and so now all I have to do is whip finish the fly. Now you could just whip finish it right here, but that would create another band of red underneath the body. So what I do is I come up and I go down one of those angles that I created when I formed the head, so that I can get back to the hook point, and just whip finish it right there. Okay, not quite done yet. We're going to put some eyes and markings on the body. Just going to come in here and take a Sharpie and just kind of push it right into the foam on both sides. And then for the legs, Sharpie used to make a color called Marigold, which I can't find anymore. So this is just a Prismacolor bronze marker. I'm going to take the legs and pull them both out. And as I mark the legs, it's going to rotate the rubber, so it's going to mark both the top and the bottom of them. You can see that makes a nice little segmentation. And then along the body, I add little red dots. So that's pretty much it. All we have to do is trim the legs. So I'm just going to take both legs forward, trim those off about that length. In the back, they should be about the length of the body. But anyway, that's it. That's the Unsinkabeetle. Not necessarily a beetle pattern, but just a good overall terrestrial pattern. It's a pretty buggy fly, floats high, and it's also available on our store at store.flyfishfood.com.